Have you ever noticed the Bible talks about dragons? I'm not joking. Dragons are actually in the Bible. And not just normal dragons. Leviathan, the great sea monster, the sea dragon, a twisting, writhing beast of the deep. There are beasts with many heads, fire breathers, chaos incarnate. You'll find them in Job, Psalms, Isaiah, Revelation. So, what is going on? Did the biblical authors believe in sea monsters and think there were real dragons walking around? Were they pulling from pagan mythology? Was it just an ancient way of describing dinosaurs? I know, that one's silly. Or could it be that there was something much deeper happening beneath the surface? These creatures in the Bible were ancient symbols of something very real. They didn't believe in actual real dragons or sea monsters literally physically existing, but they were symbols of something that did actually exist. Forces of chaos, of everything that stands against God's order. And when you trace these creatures across Scripture, from Genesis to Revelation, it opens up your understanding of God's rule, the problem of evil, and the hope that we're meant to cling to. Let's go. Welcome back to the Word Room, where we make difficult Bible passages make sense. This channel is all about digging into the original cultural context of the Bible. So if you're interested in understanding the Bible, click that subscribe button. You don't want to miss it. Now let's jump into this. Before we can really deal with dragons and sea monsters, we first need to understand something about the thinking of the ancient world. You have to remember that in the ancient world, they didn't have all the knowledge that we have today. Their view of the world was very limited. They didn't understand how vast and big the world was. In their mind, their local region was the whole world. It was everything they knew about. They didn't know about places on the other side of the globe. And often in the ancient world, they knew of the land, and then they saw that there was an ocean or a sea that was surrounding them that they viewed as chaos. You see, in the ancient world, the sea wasn't a vacation spot. It wasn't where you would go on a cruise and let's just go enjoy ourselves. They would engage the ocean and the sea for trade and business. But in general, you didn't just go out on vacation on the ocean. The sea was terrifying. It was terror. It was unpredictable. It was vast and uncontrollable. It would swallow ships and ultimately swallow lives. And that fear, that raw element of chaos, it took shape in the stories they told. In Ugarit, Baal or Baal defeats Lotan, a 7-headed sea serpent. That's right, a dragon with 7 heads. Baal's victory brings the rains and restores order where chaos was reigning. In Babylon, Marduk slays and kills Tiamat, the sea goddess of chaos. He slices her in half and builds the sky from her carcass. These were epic stories. But here's the thing, these myths from these cultures weren't just random fantasy fiction for entertainment. They were theology. You've got to remember that the ancient world wasn't like today. The people in the ancient world weren't asking the same questions that you and I ask today from a modern scientific understanding or way of thinking. In the ancient world, they would think in terms of order and chaos. There were parts of the world that seemed orderly and parts of the world that seemed chaotic. And so the question would arise, who or what is keeping the chaos at bay? And the chaos and the evil and the suffering and all the things they saw took form in these stories as these monsters. But not because they believed the monsters were literal entities, but rather because they were taking the chaos they saw and explaining a supernatural force behind it. There wasn't a physical sea monster, but there was a supernatural force behind the chaos. And then there was a supernatural force behind the order, and this order and chaos were at war. And it's that world, that ancient way of thinking, that the Israelites lived in. It's that world that produced the Bible. It's that culture that gave us the scriptures. But here's the thing, the Israelites, when they wrote the scriptures, didn't just copy the stories. They flipped the stories. Enter Leviathan. In Job 41, God talks about Leviathan like he's showing off a trophy. Listen to this description of Leviathan in Job 41.
Can you pull in Leviathan with a hook? Can you fill his hide with harpoons or his head with fishing spears? Lay a hand on him. You will remember the battle and never repeat it. Does a person not collapse at the very sight of him? No one is ferocious enough to rouse Leviathan. Who can penetrate his double layer of armor? Who can open his jaws, surrounded by those terrifying teeth? His snorting flashes with light, while his eyes are like the rays of dawn. Flaming torches shoot from his mouth. Fiery sparks fly out. Smoke billows from his nostrils as from a boiling pot or burning reeds. His breath sets coals ablaze, and flames pour out of his mouth.
Listen to how that's described. Now, some people try to explain this way as talking about a crocodile. A crocodile doesn't breathe fire. His breath doesn't set coals ablaze. This is talking about a dragon, a sea monster in the waters, but a dragon that breathes fire. This is not a real animal. It's a symbol. Chaos incarnate. But here's the twist. God says, I made him. He's not afraid. He's not battling Leviathan. He owns him. Psalm 74 goes further. Look at these verses from Psalm 74.
God, my King, is from ancient times, performing saving acts on the earth. You divided the sea with your strength. You smashed the heads of the sea monsters in the water. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You fed him to the creatures of the desert. You opened up springs and streams. You dried up ever-flowing rivers. The day is yours, also the night. You established the moon and the sun.
Look at that language. The idea here is that God is in control, that he made the moon and the sun, that he controls the day and the night, and that he divided the waters and crushed the head of the chaos. This is picturing creation, all of the material reality, and looking at both the order in the universe and the cosmos, and looking at the chaos and saying God is in control of it all. And he controls the chaos, that he's able to subdue the chaos. It's creation as conquest. And he doesn't just defeat the chaos, he feeds it to the animals like leftovers. And it happens again in Psalm 104. Look at these verses from Psalm 104.
How countless are your works, Lord! In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. Here is the sea, vast and wide, teeming with creatures beyond number, living things both large and small. There the ships move about, and Leviathan, which you formed to play there.
Another translation says, Leviathan, which you formed to frolic in it, like a puppy in the waves. You may not have picked up on it, but that's biblical trash talk. To the ancient mind, the sea was chaos, and the dragon was fear. But to the God of Israel, he makes Leviathan play fetch. Now, let's rewind back to the beginning, Genesis 1. I have a series on Genesis 1 through 3 on this channel. That link will be down in the description below. I encourage you to go watch it. But in Genesis 1:1, most translations will say, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But in reality, the Hebrew syntax would be better translated, when God began creating the heavens and the earth. I have that video here explaining that and giving all the evidence for that. I encourage you to watch it after this video. But Genesis 1:1 through 2 says, when God began to create the heavens and the earth was without form and void. Tohu vabohu, the words without form and void. Those words speak of chaos. And it says, dark was over the face of the deep. The word deep there, speaking of the sea, the watery chaos, covered in darkness. That word deep is the word tehom, which comes from the same root as the word Tiamat, the sea dragon. Was that a coincidence? Not to the ancient audience. They would have heard this and thought, this is the chaos, because all of the creation stories of all the other pagan nations around them that they would have known and heard started with chaos, this chaotic, watery void that then their champion gods would come in and fight this battle with Leviathan or Tiamat or these Lotan or all these chaotic sea creatures. And their champion gods would come in and fight this battle to defeat them. But this story is different in Genesis 1. There's no battle. God doesn't fight Tehom. He doesn't fight the deep. He simply speaks, "Let there be light," and chaos obeyed. He separates, he orders, he brings boundaries, day from night, sea from land, sky from ground. Genesis 1 is not about what God made. It's not about him physically making the universe and answering all of our scientific beginning of the universe questions that we have in the 21st century. Genesis 1 is about how God rules and brings order out of chaos. No divine sword fight, no cosmic bloodshed. Israel's God doesn't need to kill a monster. He just talks, and the chaos listens. Think about that in terms of the New Testament. Think about this cultural mindset as you read the Bible. What does Jesus do? He calms the storm on the sea. He walks on water. He reaches into the water, pulls out a fish, and out of the fish gets the money to pay taxes. He turned water into wine. It's not an accident that these type of miracles happened. All these miracles associated with water and the ocean and the sea, these were showing him as Yahweh, the God of Genesis 1, who creates order out of chaos. This was the point. It is showing him as that God. You can see this all throughout Scripture, the splitting of the Red Sea and the Exodus. These were not just random events. They were God demonstrating something to the people. But even though God controlled the chaos and brought order into chaos in Genesis 1, the chaos wasn't gone. It never fully leaves. In Isaiah 27, it says, "In that day the Lord will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea." This is apocalyptic. Now, Leviathan is more than a sea creature. He's the symbol of all the evil, political oppression, cosmic rebellion, everything wrong with the world. Fast forward to Revelation 12, and behold, a great red dragon, the ancient serpent, called the devil and Satan. We're back in Eden, back to the one who deceived. But this time, he's pictured as a full-blown dragon, and war breaks out in heaven. Michael, the archangel, fights. The dragon falls, and the people of God overcome. Not by swords, but by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. By Revelation 20, the dragon is chained. And by Revelation 21, it says there is no more sea. The sea is gone. No more chaos. No more dragon. Just a garden city ruled by the Lamb. This is the story of the Bible. This is why this matters. You're reading the story of a God who stares chaos in the face and crushes it under his heel. That's what Leviathan means. That's what the dragon is. The evil, the suffering that feels like it wins when we look at our daily lives. God slays that dragon. He controls it, he tames it, and one day he ends it. You see, the Bible, when you read it, may sound like ancient superstition. It may sound like a fairy tale. But when you realize the truth that God is communicating through it, he communicates through story. And those stories reveal who he is. Comment down below and tell me if you've ever heard this connection or seen this connection of the dragon and what it represents in the chaos in the sea. And have you ever made that connection in Scripture? Let me know down in the comments. Also, if you're interested, I have a Patreon where I am posting teachings that I'm not posting here. I've got teachings on the development of Satan. I've got teachings on what Mount Sinai means in the original cultural context and why that story is significant in Exodus. So if you're interested in these type of extra teachings, you can join the Patreon. Links in the description below. Until the next video, check out my playlist here where I'm going through Genesis 1 through 3 and showing that it may not be what you think it is. And you can also check out this video where I debunk some of the common dumb arguments against the Bible, like there's talking donkeys and snakes. See you next time.